This is Robert Harper with Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Thankful again today to bring you another Merchandiser Minute. It's Friday, May the 23rd, 2025, at the end of a full trading week. Let's take a look at how the Chicago futures traded. July corn up 16 cents for the week to close at $4.59. December corn futures, your new crop contract, up 15 cents for the week to close at $4.50. Switching over to soybeans, the old crop contract, July up 10 cents on the week to close at $10.60. And the November new crop contract up 15 cents this week to close at $10.50. July Chicago wheat up a beautiful 17 cents this week to close at $5.42. And Chicago's September wheat up 19 cents this week to close at $5.58. So remarkable price action in a week where we had plenty of news, plenty of outside influences working on your futures price. To see green color straight down the board is very much appreciated. Let's take a look at some of the influences that helped the board trade like it did this week. Remember, next week we've got the Memorial Day holiday on Monday. The markets will not be open Sunday night, and they will not be open Monday either. They'll open back up for the Tuesday session Monday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. Coming into this week, it was really fascinating to see again and again the export sales report on Thursday. When you take a look at corn, we had a very respectable export number this week, 46 million bushels. Our top customer, Japan. Looking at beans, we had a very respectable, for this time of year, 11 million bushels of total sales, Mexico being our number one bean customer. And then wheat, we had a net negative number, whether it was due to cancellations or old crop bushels being moved into new crop. Remember, the marketing year for wheat ends at the end of this month here in May, but we had a net negative number for wheat. We did see this week a very large grain and feed industry group urging the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission to reject a 24/7 trading policy that's been proposed for your futures that you see and watch every day that makes up a third of your cash price. They cited disruption in current risk management strategies used in the industry. They also talked and wrote, I should say, in a brief about decreasing market liquidity if the markets were open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and talked and wrote in that brief as well about higher compliance burdens, whether that's time for staff, cost, etc. So we'll see if their hearings will come forward about this, if the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission will allow the CME group to have 24/7 futures trading. A lot to go here on that, but just keep your eye on it. We know a lot's been different. In July of this year, it will be 10 years since the pits were closed where humans were trading these futures contracts, and it's all been electronic since then. And we know we're about 2 years really into the big investment funds, hedge funds, managed money speculators using artificial intelligence to trade futures as well. We saw some neat numbers this week. Ohio is looking at its lowest corn on the farm stocks since 2020. This doesn't come at a surprise to you all. And we know that high pressure system that set in over really Alabama to Delaware. And we had basically a half a corn crop in those states. That the Eastern Corn Belt, Ohio, Indiana, the corn has just been rolling since September, really into our area and further in the south and further in the southeast on trains. And we saw this week as we've watched Ohio basis for corn go higher and higher. We do see this week the lowest numbers in 5 years on how much corn is in the bin over there. We had really strong, speaking of export sales, we had really strong shipments this week. We get those numbers on Monday, as you know, another 67 million bushels of corn exported out of the country for the week. And I had one analyst tell me this week that he's done this for 40 years and he really doesn't know if we've seen a 10-week period this good in the 40 years that he's watched it on not only how much corn has been sold, but how much corn has been loaded and left the country. And that's really helped keep that futures price on your corn as high as it is. Virginia corn, some fundamentals coming into the week. We saw 86% of the crop planted. That was as of this Sunday. 77% of that crop was rated at good to excellent by our worthy extension agents all over the state and others that turn that data in to National Ag Statistics. Virginia beans, 58% planted coming into the week. 43% is the 5-year average. We do not have a good to excellent rating yet on the beans, but one of those will be coming soon. Looking at U.S. corn, 78% planted this week coming into it, and U.S. beans, 66% planted for the week, both way ahead of the 5-year average. And again, speaking of corn specifically, as good as the corn demand has been to support higher price, the fast planting pace has been an anchor and helped pull that corn futures price down, and even to some degree the soybean price. More acres are planted when they get in faster, just like on your farm, just like our overall acres in Virginia or our overall acres in the United States. We talked here last week about high-path avian influenza being found in Brazil in a commercial flock. We saw this week the European Union issue a statement that banned all exports of poultry meat products, and lots of questions, lots of discussions about will this add to food inflation here in the United States if more of our poultry will now get exported to the EU. When we think about soybeans this week, you still got to think about the 45Z tax credit and all things related to biofuels, soy oil. It's in the news every day. It is a main influence right now, in my opinion, on how soybeans and its products trade. You saw some action this week, volatile action with soy oil prices falling on the futures board and soybean meal prices rallying on the futures board. That's directly related to an uncertain future about those RVOs that we talked about last week. What are those obligations on how much small, medium, and large refiners are going to have to use biofuel in the work that they're doing? So keep your eye on that. Global vegetable oil markets, whether you're talking about canola oil, Malaysian palm oil, as well as soy oil around the world, are all reacting to U.S. policy on biofuels. So keep your eye on it. Illinois, last week, before it was Kansas, this week it was the Illinois Wheat Association Wheat Tour. They got to 89 fields across their great state. And remember, it's really, really wet in southern Illinois, the southern eastern corn belt. You all have driven through that area before. Interstate 64 cuts across that part of Indiana and Illinois. It's raining every other day, every third day. They're way behind on getting crops planted there, and it's an indication that parts of Kentucky, parts of Illinois, I think we're coming up on the insurance date. We'll take prevented plant this year, but we'll see that. But they got around this week. They looked at a lot of wheat, 89 fields. 106.3 was the yield estimate of what they'll get. Remember, Illinois is our largest soft wheat producer in the state, in the nation. Last year's expected yield and what turned out was 104. They're saying 106. And interestingly, USDA National Ag Statistics has Illinois with their survey of the state at 85 bushels per acre. The Illinois Wheat Association at 106. We're thankful to say this year will be the 10th year of a cooperative tour with Virginia Farm Bureau and Virginia Cooperative Extension. We work together on the Virginia Wheat Tour, and we'll be going out on Wednesday and on Thursday of next week trying to estimate quality and yield. We'll get you that information. Thinking about the Commitment to Traders report coming into this week, last Friday, boy, just what a change from January. We've got the corn speculator now short 84,000 futures contracts, with corn being up like it was this week. Whether you're looking at the July contract up 16 or the December up 15, you definitely saw a short covering. They got out of some of those, so in today's Commitment to Traders report, we should see less of a short position, but they're still short corn. Wheat short 126,000 futures contracts, beans long 38,000. Still optimistic from the speculator that beans can go higher before they go lower. We know that's about less than acres in the U.S. and all of the unknowns around biodiesel, RVOs, 45Z tax credit. So I think a theme this week we're going to remember. It was very interesting to see the title, the Trump administration and kind of their centerpiece for their economic agenda, the big, beautiful bill. If you've been busy working all week, if you haven't read about that, it did pass yesterday in the House. And it's even strange looking at it in writing. The bill passed 215 to 214. It passed by one vote. Just amazing. We saw a lot of volatility on the different stock market futures indexes this week around this bill that really centers the Trump administration's three-legged plan around tariffs, tax cuts, and spending cuts. And it gets the folks that manage a lot of money nervous, because if we're cutting spending and cutting taxes and putting tariffs on, it's just a lot of unknowns. There were big jumps in the bond yields this week to nearly 20-year highs. That spooked the stock markets as well. So we're going to watch that closer next week. It does have an impact on how money moves and whether speculators want to buy corn or sell it. So we'll see what happens next week. The ethanol report this week up 4%, still just above 1 million barrels per day. Interestingly enough, even in the spring maintenance season that we saw a bump in production, stocks down 2% to 24.9 million barrels. So it's great to see a draw on the stocks when we have a production increase. So that's a good sign for demand. We know that President Trump and Russia's President Putin spoke this week, on Monday I believe it was, to try to set a path ahead for negotiations about the war in Ukraine. We're going to watch that like we have been. And I think one of the other big influences outside this week was Moody's. Last Friday, Moody's downgraded of the U.S. sovereign credit rating. That was a week ago today, but it really played out this week in the stock market futures, and it could have been a whole lot worse than it was as far as the volatility or how far off we are from where we opened. But watch that next week. Now, y'all are getting a lot of field work done. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. Remember, keep gathering information every day about the influences on the futures part of your cash price. Keep gathering information every day about local basis, whether you're trying to make those final sales on your 2024 crop, those old crop bushels in the bin, or you're looking ahead now that some of y'all have got corn, depending on where you are in the state, almost knee high. And just keep in your mind to gather information, to get information as well on local basis, and let Josie or I help you if we can about making marketing decisions, if we can lock profits in for you now with your inputs based on average yield. We're here to help you. We wish you the best next week. This is Robert at Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division.